Good morning and welcome. We're so excited that you are joining us and hope that you are enjoying the holiday season. Though we cannot be together in person at this time, we are grateful to be able to live stream our services and grateful that you're here. Please join us for Community Hour following the service on Zoom. A link may be found in the order of service. If you would like to know more about our congregation, please visit our website at www.unitytemple.org and fill out a visitor form. I'll be happy to follow up with you when I return from vacation the week of January the 10th. And now, please enjoy the service.
Thank you, Don Skoog, for our opening music. Good morning. My name is Ed McDevitt. I'm President of Board of Trustees at Unity Temple. It's my pleasure to welcome you here this morning and on this holiday weekend. If you're with us on our live stream for the first time, thank you for joining us. We look forward to getting to know you. We invite everyone to join in on our Zoom Community Hour immediately following the service. The link can be found in the e-beacon or in yesterday's email. Each week we remind ourselves of our congregation's core values: connection, transformation, justice, and acceptance. Our mission is to embody these core values in our daily lives by welcoming all, inspiring compassion, nurturing wonder, and serving community. When we have the opportunity on a Sunday morning, we like to remind ourselves of the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism. Today, I mentioned the 8th principle, which is being adopted at increasing numbers of Unitarian Universalist congregations and will be a significant topic of discussion here in the coming year. And in fact, there will be an entire service dedicated to it on February 13. I ask you to listen to it, and if you can, remember its exact words. There will be no test. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppression in ourselves and our institutions. We're so glad that you're here with us today. We hope that you find the service inspiring and meaningful. I invite you now to, if you were here in the congregation or you're here in the church, you would take a moment to greet each other. So if you're at home, greet each other at home and grab some more coffee.
I invite you to light our chalice with us, using your chalice at home. We are Unitarian Universalists. This is the church of the open minds, the loving hearts, and the helping hands. We take care of the planet Earth and each other. Listen to our call to worship. Listen. Can you hear it? The wind in the leaves, the beauty of a sunrise, the slow change of the seasons, the friendly phone call, the smile of a stranger. Hidden in plain sight, the divine makes itself known, beckoning for you to listen, for you to respond. Are you ready to hear the call? Whoever you are, wherever you are on life's journey, wherever you are in the world, you are welcome here. Come, let us worship together.
Life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the reel of far-off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars? I know the truth, it liveth. What though the darkness round me close? Songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost core, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging, when friends by shame are undefiled. How can I keep from singing?
Please join in reciting the words of our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God.
Good morning. I'm Jay Peterson, one of the pastoral associates of this congregation. Holding each other is a time to pause, to share, and reflect on the moments that have especially touched our lives and moved our spirit throughout the past week. We companion one another with compassion. We sit with one another in times of joy and sorrow. To share something with the congregation that has touched your life, please email pastoralassociates@unitytemple.org by Friday evening each week. These are milestones and events that were shared with us this week. Beth Dowell shared that she found joy watching the Christmas pageant online from Colorado. Her family found an expanded joy reviewing photos of their young adult sons participating in the pageant years ago. Their 16-year-old son from Nigeria for a year had a lot of fun playing in the Colorado snow. His excitement and joy was contagious for all. Despite COVID fears and limitations, we can still experience the unadulterated joy of Christmas throughout the year. Roy Lundeen, long-term member, is recovering from surgery to repair a femur. He's in rehab at Dimensions Living on Plainfield Road in Burr Ridge, where he is regaining strength with intentions to walk again. No visitors right now, but cards are welcome. Yesterday, Bishop Desmond Tutu passed away at 90 years old. We honor him and his life's work. Violence touches the lives of many people, both in our community and throughout the world. We hold in our hearts all those whose lives have been impacted by violence as either victims or perpetrators. Let us hold in our hearts each of these joys and sorrows shared, as well as those that remain unspoken. Be an opening for listening and sharing throughout your days and weeks ahead. A poem by Erika Hewitt, The Hand in Yours. During this poem, imagine yourself holding hands with those close to you, with people throughout our congregation and people throughout the world. The hand in yours belongs to a person whose heart is sometimes tender, whose skin is sometimes thin, whose eyes sometimes fill with tears, and whose laughter is a beautiful sound. The hand that you hold belongs to a person who is seeking wholeness and trusts that you are doing the same. As you leave this service, may your hearts remain open, may your voices stay strong, and may your hands remain outstretched.
Our story today is a book called Miss Rumphius, Story and Pictures by Barbara Cooney. The lupine lady lives in a small house overlooking the sea. In between the rocks around her house grow blue and purple and rose-colored flowers. The lupine lady is little and old, but she has not always been that way. I know. She is my great aunt, and she told me so. Once upon a time, she was a little girl named Alice who lived in a city by the sea. From the front stoop, she could see the wharves and the bristling masts of tall ships. Many years ago, her grandfather had come to America on a sailing ship. Now he worked in the shop at the bottom of the house making figureheads for the prows of ships. For Alice's grandfather was an artist. He painted pictures, too, of sailing ships and places across the sea. When he was busy, Alice helped him put in the skies. In the evening, Alice sat on her grandfather's knee and listened to his stories of faraway places. When he finished, Alice would say, "When I grow up, I too will go to faraway places, and when I grow old, I too will live beside the sea." "That is all very well, little Alice," said her grandfather, "but there is a third thing you must do." "What is that?" asked Alice. "You must do something to make the world more beautiful," said her grandfather. "All right," said Alice, but she did not know what that could be. In the meantime, Alice got up and washed her face and ate porridge for breakfast. She went to school and came home and did her homework, and pretty soon she was grown up. Then my great aunt Alice set out to do the 3 things she had told her grandfather she was going to do. She left home and went to live in another city far from the sea and the salt air. Then she worked in a library, dusting books and keeping them from getting mixed up, and helping people find the ones they wanted. Some of the books told her about faraway places. People called her Miss Rumphius now. Sometimes she went to the conservatory in the middle of the park. When she stepped inside on a wintry day, the warm, moist air wrapped itself around her, and the sweet smell of jasmine filled her nose. "This is almost like a tropical isle," said Miss Rumphius, "but not quite." So Miss Rumphius went to a real tropical island where people kept cockatoos and monkeys as pets. She walked on long beaches, picked up beautiful shells. One day she met the king of a fishing village. "You must be tired," he said. "Come into my house and rest." So Miss Rumphius went in and met the king's wife. The king fetched a green coconut and cut a slice off the top so that Miss Rumphius could drink the coconut water inside. Before she left, the king gave her a beautiful mother of pearl shell on which he had painted a bird of paradise and the words, "You will always remain in my heart." "You will always remain in my heart, too," said Miss Rumphius. My great aunt Alice, Miss Alice Rumphius, climbed tall mountains where the snow never melted. She went through jungles and across deserts. She saw lions playing and kangaroos jumping, and everywhere she met friends she would never forget. Finally, she came back to the land of the lotus eaters, and there, getting off a camel, she hurt her back. "What a foolish thing to do," said Miss Rumphius. "Well, I have certainly seen faraway places. Maybe it is time to find my place by the sea." And it was, and so she did. From the porch of her new house, Miss Rumphius watched the sun come up. She watched it across the heavens and sparkle on the water, and she saw it set in glory in the evening. She started a little garden among the rocks that surrounded her house, and she planted a few flower seeds in the stony ground. Miss Rumphius was almost perfectly happy. "But there is still one more thing I have to do," she said. "I have to do something to make the world more beautiful." "But what? The world is already pretty nice," she thought, looking out over the ocean. The next spring, Miss Rumphius was not very well. Her back was bothering her again, and she had to stay in bed most of the time. The flowers she had planted the summer before had come up and bloomed in spite of the stony ground. She could see them from her bedroom window, blue and purple and rose-colored. "Lupines," said Miss Rumphius with satisfaction. "I've always loved lupines the best. I wish I could plant more seeds this summer so that I could still have more flowers next year." But she was not able to. After a hard spring came, Miss Rumphius was feeling better. Now she could take walks again. One afternoon, she started to go up and over the hill where she had not been in a long time. "I don't believe my eyes," she cried when she got to the top. For there, on the other side of the hill, was a large patch of blue and purple and rose-colored lupines. "It was the wind," she said as she knelt in delight. "It was the wind that brought the seeds from my garden here, and the birds must have helped." Then Miss Rumphius had a wonderful idea. She hurried home and got out her seed catalogs. She sent off to the very best seed houses for 5 bushels of lupine seed. All that summer, Miss Rumphius, her pockets full of seeds, wandered over fields and headlands sowing lupines. She scattered seeds along the highways and down the country lanes. She flung handfuls of them around the schoolhouse and the back of the church. She tossed them into hollows and along the stone walls. Her back didn't hurt her any more at all. Now some people called her that crazy old lady. The next spring, there were lupines everywhere. Fields and hillsides were covered with blue and purple and rose-colored flowers. They bloomed along the highways and down the lanes. Bright patches lay around the schoolhouse and back of the church. Down in the hollows and along the stone walls grew the beautiful flowers. Miss Rumphius had done the third, the most difficult thing of all. My great-aunt Alice, Miss Rumphius, is very old now. Her hair is very white. Every year there are more and more lupines. Now they call her the Lupine Lady. Sometimes my friends stand with me outside her gate, curious to see the old lady who planted the fields of lupines. When she invites us in, they come slowly. They think she is the oldest woman in the world. Often she tells us stories of faraway places. When I grow up, I tell her, I too will go to faraway places and come home to live by the sea. "That is all very well, little Alice," says my aunt, "but there is a third thing you must do." "What is that?" I ask. "You must do something to make the world more beautiful." "All right," I say, "but I do not know yet what that can be." On a cool spring day several years ago, my children and I were outside playing at our condo. Luna and I were drawing with sidewalk chalk while Lucian was careening down the hill of the parking lot, asking to fracture his arm. These afternoons were some of my favorites. Nothing to do but be with each other, moving from one activity to another, chatting as something came up, or simply sitting in the early spring sun. On this day, as we sat together, Luna, probably around the age of 5 or 6, turned to me and said, "I think there's a difference between what I want to do and what I need to do." Now, I'm always surprised by this sort of gravitas and maturity coming from one so young, but with Luna, it's somewhat par for the course, so I simply asked them what they meant. Well, I've always wanted to be an astrophysicist, and I still do, but I don't think going to space or studying the stars is helpful. It won't save our planet. I think I have to do something to help save what we have right here and now. As we grew up with the story Miss Rumphius, and as a child of a seminary professor and future minister, I was startled but not completely surprised by my child's astuteness of circumstance. Yet the clarity of what they saw as a problem and the deep conviction of their role in fixing it was poignant. I believe that in Luna's revelation, they received a call. The word call for most people is usually used in relation to ministers and their work. Maybe it conjures up some mystical, life-changing experience. Call is usually associated with a voice, a feeling, a perceived direction given by some supernatural being, or maybe spiritual or energetic force. If you ask most ministers, they can share a call story. Some might tend to be more mystical and some more practical, but many ministers describe a sense of compulsion, an obligation, a necessity, or a pull, more likely a push, to work that is larger than themselves. Often a work that means a lot of sacrifice, but more so, a work that leaves a deep impression on the world, on the communities that they are a part of, not to mention a deep impression on the minister. I have my own call experience, which I name mystical, for there is much about it that is mystery, unknown and indescribable. This call to ministry, however, is not the only pull, push, or compulsion that I have felt in my life. I have felt it at multiple times when I was at a crossroad, feeling a gentle tug or a pull on my spirit that led me one way or another. In every one of these moments, there was a choice. I was free to decide which choice to make. And I also knew intuitively that if I chose differently than the tug, that I would encounter a feeling of walking upstream against the current, that I might end up back at that choice again, or regret not following that tug. Does this mean that the choice to follow the Spirit was easy? Absolutely not. While it often seemed that in making a choice to follow the tug, the call, the doors opened, the windows peeped wide, and an opportunity would come more easily. However, it was most often the harder choice. In each choice, I was transformed by not only the choice itself, but the circumstances and experiences that followed that choice. I suppose that's the point, though. I believe that each of these urgings, each of these calls are larger than me. I have no doubt that the purpose of these calls will never be known or even fulfilled in my lifetime. There is a larger pattern here, a pattern of truth and love, and yet I believe that each of these calls has transformed me into the person and sometimes transformed my community into who we are. Certainly, it has impacted my relationships and my community. I think there are many examples of people who feel a call and do the work of love and justice, even if it is the harder choice. I think of Harriet Tubman, who freed herself from enslavement. She could have started a new life in the North, but she went back. She freed hundreds of others. She made a choice to follow love. I love the way that Dr. Alexis Pauline Gumbs speaks about Harriet Tubman's choice. She writes, "Remember why Harriet Tubman went south. She didn't have to. She was skilled, untraceable. She could have been individually free, unencumbered. But if she wanted to tell an everlasting truth about freedom that would ring across the planet, a message for the ages, she had to live free in unfree space. It was the only way to bring us all with her." There is within a call an understanding of the world as larger than oneself, of a larger community. From Harriet Tubman to my child Luna, there is a realization that when the tug pulls on the heart saying, "This way," it is simply too strong of a lure to ignore. But what is that lure? I know many people who would say God, and I say God is that which is mystery, using the work of process theologian Catherine Keller. Mystery is that connection of us to something larger than ourselves, that connects us to one another and to all of creation. Truly a love that surpasses all understanding. That passes all understanding in a moment that allowed Harriet Tubman to risk her own life for the freedom of others, for justice. And in that risk, we find ourselves transformed. We become whole and full as we realize this love for ourselves and live it out into the world. But lest we think that this call, this lure, this tug is only for those specially chosen by that mystery we cannot fully understand, let's be clear. This mystery is a part of each of our lives, whether we know it or acknowledge it. Not all of us are called or choose to accept a call that leads us on a path of sacrifice, and yet we all play a role in something larger. I think that you, sitting here or at home, in this community, a part of Unity Temple, a community that works towards loving each other and bringing justice to the world, is a matter of call. You, each of you, followed a call, a lure to be part of something greater. Whatever it was that got you to this place didn't happen by chance. It was part of a journey leading you someplace more. You were lured here by possibility, by hope, by love, by something larger than you. Even the smallest call matters, because even the smallest call adds life, possibility, and love to a community seeking justice here and in the world. But call is also small, everyday things. It is also something tugging us in a different direction while on a walk in the woods so we could see that red-tailed hawk perched in the oak tree along the path. It is the impulse to clean out a closet, finding an old letter we had forgotten about that gives us just the right message at just the right moment. It is the lure in our everyday lives that helps us become something more. Through new insights or learnings, through relearnings and reminders, through encounters with nature that speak to our soul. But why does call matter? Why should we be listening, let alone following this call? A few weeks ago, I shared a Jewish mystical story from Mirabai Starr's book, Wild Mercy, in my minister's musings. In it, she writes of how the divine wished to know itself and so placed themselves in jars, which shattered because they could not contain the divine's essence. It is a creation story, for those jars scattered all over creation, and it is our responsibility to find the pieces of those jars out in the world. I like to think of those pieces sending out lures to us, calling us to find them. Each piece containing a part of the divine: love, justice, hope, peace, compassion. As we listen, as we find them, as we put the pieces back together, each piece that touches our lives changes us, and we begin to create the original intent of the divine, living into all we might be, embodying those characteristics of the divine. So as we begin this new year, once again in the midst of a pandemic, may I suggest that rather than a New Year's resolution to lose weight, eat better, or exercise, or maybe in addition to these resolutions, you also include a resolution that lets you listen and feel the call that the mystery of the divine is calling you to. Cultivate a spiritual practice that helps you find the pieces of those cracked vessels as we journey towards creating justice in our lives and the world by transforming ourselves and each other. Let us listen to the mystery together as it calls us to what we must in order to make the world a beautiful, justice-filled place. Let us do what we must do. Blessed be.
Good morning. I'm Judy Gallardo Grace, and I'm this congregation's liaison to Housing Forward. At Unity Temple, we give our offerings to organizations that align with our values. This week, our offering supports Housing Forward and is being given in memory of Carrie Banks. Unity Temple has been a longtime partner and supporter of Housing Forward, which is passionate about one goal: ending homelessness in West suburban Cook County. In Carrie's obituary earlier this year, her husband Steve wrote that Carrie was deeply committed to Housing Forward and their work to end homelessness. She served as their director of communications for 3 years, bringing her creativity and passion to their social media, annual reports, and promotional materials. For as long as I can remember, a member of our congregation has served on Housing Forward's board of directors, and many members, including the Banks and my husband Terry and I, have volunteered in the PADS program, staffing shelters and preparing meals. This involvement continues to this day. Housing Forward exists for the men, women, and children in the western suburbs who are in the midst of homelessness and housing crisis, and for whom the comforts of home are out of reach. During the holidays and in the midst of the coronavirus crisis, these needs are particularly acute. Today's offering will help Housing Forward respond swiftly through the provision of safe, stable, and long-term housing, a home, a place of comfort and peace. You may donate by sending a check to the Unity Temple office with Housing Forward in the memo line, or by following the instructions on your screen. Housing Forward is deeply grateful for the long-time partnership of the congregation of Unity Temple. May what you give bring you joy.
You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do. Oh Lord, you gotta do when the Spirit says do. Spirit says do. Spirit says do. Spirit says do. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing. Oh Lord, you gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. Spirit says sing. Spirit says sing. Spirit says sing. You gotta shout when the Spirit says shout. You gotta shout when the Spirit says shout. When the Spirit says shout, you gotta shout. Oh Lord, you gotta shout when the Spirit says shout. Spirit says shout. Spirit says shout. Spirit says shout. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do. Oh Lord, you gotta do when the Spirit says do. Spirit says sing. Spirit says shout. Spirit says do. Spirit says do.
We are called to bring peace, to share love, to work towards justice, to care for one another, to steward our Mother Earth, to walk with integrity, and to be a beacon of light for the world. May we listen closely and carefully to the Spirit calling us to do our part. Amen.